Lovely.
Gentlemen, can I just have a word with the public speakers for a second? When you, I've got a list here, or we have a list, a registered list, and those will be the people who will be allowed to speak, and that's fine. So if you'd be kind enough, rather than me bat around with this list and get the wrong person in the wrong order, because you may have decided differently, when you come forward, that's the speaker's chair just there. So you can sit in the other seats if you want, it's entirely up to you.
The mics at work, they just need to sit
But
there.
so that one just there on the corner there is where the mic is set up for you. So if you'd be kind enough when you do sit there, if you can just announce who you are, and that's all I'm asking. So there'll be 3 minutes for your question, and then I'm going to allow a supplementary of 2 minutes. As you know, I always do anyway. So you can use these chairs if you want here. It's okay. It's just that's the one you need to sit in when you're actually speaking. So I'll leave that to you. Well, I do have an order here, but so you can decide amongst yourselves. I don't really mind, which is why I said whoever sits there, if they just announce who they are, you know, it's probably the easiest thing to do, isn't it? You know, if you just decide who wants to go first, and then when you sit there, just announce your name, and there you go. That sort of makes it a bit easier, doesn't it? Rather than me calling a register. that makes it easier. I'm quite happy. Let's call it three. Let's compromise. If you want to let three others in, I'm absolutely fine with that. That's fine. I don't have any problem with that. I mean, there's nothing to hide in here. I mean, it's been live streamed anyway. Morning, everyone. I would like to welcome you all to Cambridge City Council's Licensing Committee meeting. This includes members here in the chamber, those joining us virtually, public speakers, and members of the public who are watching this meeting. My name's Councillor Russ McPherson. I'm chair for this meeting. Can those please present in the council chamber just remember that everything on your desk, including laptop, screen, can be broadcast at some point. If you are following Teams meeting here in the chamber on the laptop, just remember please to cancel the audio and the camera must be switched off. And please, if the fire alarm sounds, please follow the officers who will leave the chamber and make the way down the stairs to the assembly point. Do not use the lifts. Now, we've had the fire alarm test already this morning. So anything goes off in that nature is a real one. And so you just need to follow the officers. These are the doors that are open at the moment. Those can be open, but they're not at the moment. But this is the way out, this way at the moment, and we will make sure that everybody's safe. The list of councillors in the chamber, what I like to do, rather than me read out everybody's list, because then I can shut up for a little while, if I can just ask councillors to introduce themselves, and then we'll get to apologies. So, Jocelyn, from yourself first.
Yes.
Councillor Jerry Bird, Vice Chair of Licensing.
I'm Councillor Jocelyn Scott, and I represent West Chesterton.
Councillor Eva Divkovic, and I represent Arbury.
I'm Councillor Alice Gilderdale from Market Ward.
I am Richard Robertson from Petersfield Ward, Councillor.
Mike Davey, Petersfield Ward, substituting for Sam Carling.
Councillor Page Croft, Creed Edith Ward.
Councillor David Levine from Trumpington Ward.
Yvonne O'Donnell, Environmental Health Manager.
Paul Weller, Legal Advisor.
Steve, Committee Manager.
Chris Connor, Meeting Producer.
Thank you very much. That's everyone in the chamber, apart from the members of the public, and those speaking will introduce themselves as they go along. Councillor Bennett is online. I'm sorry, Councillor Bennett, I forgot that. So Councillor Bennett is actually online. I'll just read some of the procedure because I know not everybody in the chamber is used to this, so I will read it this time. I don't normally. The committee will receive an oral presentation from the officer. Members of the committee will then discuss the report and vote on the recommendation. As chair, if the vote is split, I will have the casting vote. I've decided as chair to move the agenda order, and we'll take item 7 first due to the public interest in that item. So we'll just move, because that was item 7, I believe. So I've just moved that up in deference to yourselves. We have 2 councillor speakers, Councillor Tathala and Councillor Bajan. I don't think Councillor Tathala's here yet, but he probably will be. Council Procedure Rules 39.2.3, a member of the council may speak at a meeting of the committee or subcommittee of which he or she is not a member at the request or permission of that committee or its chair made or obtained before the meeting, but may not vote at such meeting, and such requests or permission shall specify the matters in respect of which a member shall be permitted to speak. And in short term, what that means is Councillor Bajan can speak here, but he can't vote. That's much more simple, but that's what that bit means. So the only voting members will be members of the committee. Okay, apologies. Do we have any apologies?
Councillor Carling.
Thank you very much. Councillor Bennett's online, so yeah, we already mentioned that. So although Councillor Bennett, I will say, as Councillor Bennett's online, she's not allowed to vote either. So can take part in the meeting, but she's not allowed to vote. Expression of interest, members. Councillor.
Thank you. I'd just like to say that I did very recently have a meeting with a couple of drivers. Nothing was expressed. No opinions were expressed. My discretion is unaffected. Thank you.
Any other declarations of interest? However, I will remind members that they can declare those at any time as we go through the meeting. So that's fine. If you think of something later, there's no problem. Minutes of the 30th of January 2023 have been submitted to this meeting for approval. If there are any concerns, please give members raise them now, otherwise they'll be approved as a correct record. So basically, you've had the minutes of the last meeting. Is everybody happy? Are there any matters arising from those minutes? Thank you very much. Silence assumes assent, so I will sign those when you're good and ready. We have public speakers in attendance here in the chamber, some representing Cambridge licensed taxis and Cambridge taxi drivers, and an independent person. Gentlemen, because it is all gentlemen, I would like to remind you that 30 minutes has been allocated for this public speaking item, which is normal. It's exactly the same at full council, and that is what we will keep to. I've seen the list. We have a list here of public speakers, but I'm more than happy that you go in the order that you wish to go in. And as we discussed just a little earlier, if you sit in the public speaker's chair just on the corner there, and make sure the microphone is on, and if you can just announce who you are at that point. You will have 3 minutes to speak, and when you come within 30 seconds, so 2.5 minutes, have we got a bell or anything? Oh, cracking, well done, Sarah. So Sarah's got her bell with her, which is good. So Sarah will ding the bell. That means you have to stop in mid-sentence. You'll have 30 seconds, and I will do my best not to stop you in mid-word, but allow you to get to the end of that phrase. I'm not that pedantic. And then you will have 2 minutes for a supplementary. I don't have to do that, but I think that's right today. So we'll do that. And when we get to that 30 minutes, then that will be the end of that session. So I know that a lot of the speakers want to speak on the same thing. So I'll just give you a little tip that if somebody said something that you were already going to say, perhaps you might want to say something else. That's all. You can get more information across that way rather than repeating what's been said. But the choice is yours. It's your 30 minutes. You do with it as you see fit. And I think actually that brings us to that. Yes, it does. So if I could ask the first public speaker, whomever you wish to speak first, just to take the public speaker chair, switch on the microphone, identify yourself, that would be great. Thank you so much.
Okay, so am I. Okay, thanks very much. I'm Carl Stamper. I represent myself at the current time. I have been a trade representative for the National Private Hire and Taxi Association previously. I wanted today to speak about CCTV. I was invited by multiple drivers to come along and run through basic facts of what my findings are. It obviously started in 2017. Basically, it's a publicly forward-facing taxi camera. It's basically looking at the public, basically. Only 5% of local authorities actually have it. 3 local authorities disallow it. It was brought in to your attention via 2 persons. That's from the government website, just to say the 5% and the 3 local authorities. Basically, we had 2 persons from another association. At that time, there was only a representation of 4 members in it. We have the minutes, obviously, here, and it basically, the 2 gentlemen involved, maybe at the time, they felt there was a need. That's where it stemmed from. The consultation started before COVID. And all I'm asking now today is probably, is it fit for the purpose now? Because it started well before COVID. A formal complaint has been applied to do with the consultation process with regards to the costing exercise. And basically, you can see the details on the council's website. It's CAM 824119. In exercise that really only had 2 lines within the original consultation. And failures, no impact report was considered of those on benefits and using the food banks. No cost exercise, only 2 lines. So basically, about 4 to 5 weeks ago, basically, in the consultation, there was only 2 lines, and that was the costing exercise at that time. Costing, or shall we say the 2 lines, it'll affect 300 Hackney carriages, at £444 each, which comes to 133,000. The cost to a full trade, including South Cams, will be 888,000 plus fitting. So we're talking a considerable amount of money here. The council specification for cameras, basically 9 pages long.
Okay, that's your 3 minutes. Would you want to respond to those 3 minutes? What you can do, just thinking that through, if you want to carry on for another 2 minutes, we can use that as your supplementary time. Did you want to do that?
I would like to just,
Okay,
we're
that's
near
fine.
the end
Then
of
that'll
it.
give-
It's just,
You'll still get the 5 minutes that way. If you, does that work better for you?
I'm
Okay,
quite
let's
happy
do that
to,
then.
yeah. The council specification for cameras was 9 pages long. 9 pages long, but the specification for a courtroom, I believe they want to have 1080 as a minimum level, not 720. So that's 9 pages long. The specification is also into question. This hasn't been seen by a licensing committee for approval in 2017. The specification, the costing, the demonstration for the need of CCTV, there was no demonstration. It was just 2 people came into a room and said, I think we should have it. I don't know why it's grown, but it is what it is today, and this is probably why we're all here today. Basically, we only had this specification 4 to 5 weeks ago. Resolution to release provide clear. It has to show in a courtroom the camera equipment, if they are installed, without a shadow of a doubt to whatever's gone on. So the specification is important to get this right. Notice within the policy and the consultation, I noticed that you're using the word condition, the condition of a licence, and I notice you're not actually doing that. You're not making it a condition of a licence. You're actually putting it straight into your policy, which takes away the right for people to actually appeal at the magistrates' court if it's a condition of licence, and obviously if it's in the policy, unfortunately, it is the High Court. I question that position. We historically used to have condition of licence, and historically used to have a condition of licence. That seems to have just disappeared. Able to?
Okay, thank you for that. We're out of time on that now. Paul, thank you for your contribution there. At least you did get your 5 minutes. We didn't stop you mid-sentence. So for that.
I can just respond to a couple of queries that Mr Stamper has raised. The consultation has happened on a number of occasions over the last year since 2017. We reviewed the consultation January 2022 with the new statutory guidance, which asks for proportionality and reasonableness. That came to October 2022, where the specification was also tabled at committee in October 2022. So just to clarify a few points that Mr Stamper has raised with us today, there has been full consultations throughout the whole process.
Thank you very much. Next speaker, please. At the risk of repeating myself, I'll say the same thing. You've got 3 minutes, which I know you know that. You've got 3 minutes and 2 minutes. If it suits your purpose better to go on for the extra 2 minutes in one go, as Mr Stamp did, then fine. The choice is yours.
Okay, thank you very much for giving me the right to speak today. My name is Ahmed Karahman, and I am the chairman of Cambridge City Licensed Taxis. In 2017, an individual pretending to be a trade representative requested to have CCTV, mandatory CCTV in taxis. Then nearly 250 petitioners from the taxi trade signed petition opposing this, but this was not taken into account. And this policy was brought in. You can see there are lots of people, probably you haven't seen that many people in this room before representing the taxi trade. They are unhappy to have this policy, and there are hundreds outside protesting for the same cause. Since 2017, many things have changed in our world. We have had a COVID pandemic to start with, and now there is an ongoing war just around the corner. Therefore, this policy should be reviewed. I don't think it's fit and proper for the time being. Until now, only 5% of the UK councils brought mandatory CCTVs in taxis. Only 15 out of 278 councils. This data is available on gov.uk website, and I can provide it to you in case you want it. So why Cambridge is in that 15, the little 5%? Are we not safe enough? Council create policies if there is a real need for them. Is there a real need for mandatory cameras in Cambridge? In 2021 and 2022, Cambridge was chosen to be the safest place in the UK. Except, of course, this is with your great job and our great job. Cambridge City Council and the police both agree that incidents inside licensed vehicles in Cambridge are minimal. If this is the case, why this mandatory CCTV policy has been implemented? What's the reason behind this? Why you are asking the trade to pay nearly £1 million to implement mandatory CCTV cameras? By doing this, you'll send some of our drivers to the food banks. I have been in contact with all CCTV providers approved by the council. In their statement, they raise the concern that their cameras cannot be fitted in some of the electric vehicles as they have no fuse boxes for the power supply. More likely, CCTV cameras will interfere with the self-driving cameras of the vehicle as well. I also contacted a few of the local vehicle main dealerships in order to ask if fitting a CCTV in vehicle may invalidate the warranty. They were straightforward in their reply, stating CCTV is classed as a modification, and every modification which is not fitted by their engineers will invalidate a warranty of a brand new vehicle. Sorry, but I am not buying a 50K electric vehicle and taking it to your suppliers to drill the interior of and install the CCTV. I rather...
You've got 2 minutes left if you wish to carry on.
I rather give back my taxi license and change my occupation. I believe many of my colleagues will follow this. The only reasonable solution out of this seems to be optional CCTV cameras for taxi drivers. Let the drivers decide whether they need CCTV in their vehicles, or create a database and mandate CCTV to those drivers who receive X amount of complaints from the public which occurred inside the vehicle. This is all I can say. I mean, the final stage that we are planning to take is a legal case. We don't want to go in this way. We really don't want to spend our money in this hardship, and we really don't want to spend the taxpayers' money in this hardship. But if we have no other choice, our members have contributed towards a legal fund, and we are going to try our best, and we'll ask Her Majesty's courts to decide whether or not we are right or wrong. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for that. Did you wish to respond?
Just 2 points. Just to clarify, as I said, the policy was reviewed in January 2022 following the statutory guidance. So as far as we're concerned, it is fit for purpose as of today. And the second point is the council aren't providing suppliers. We're just saying this is the specification, and the trade can actually go to any supplier as long as it meets the specification of the policy.
And thank you for keeping aside time. You had another 20 seconds left. Well done. Thank you. If you could just announce your name and carry on.
Good morning,
you can do the
committee
same
members.
thing, either 3 minutes for the first question, 2 minutes for the second, or 5 minutes total for one.
Sure,
Whatever's your choice.
My name is Sajjad Khan, and I'm representing Cambridge Taxi Driver Union today. Respected committee members, you have been misled into adopting this policy based on the ambition of few individuals. One of the individuals who was member of the trade has been accused of racism and is no longer part of the trade. This policy was poorly formulated back in 2017 and is no longer in line with the current government policy and recommendation. Here is why. Biometric and surveillance camera commissioner guidance for taxi and private hire vehicle licensing, verbatim, 2 point. The commissioner recognizes that refers the local
Can I
authority.
just stop you there? Sorry, That's all right, you won't lose any time.
Right,
You-
can I
You're going
just-
so fast that it's very difficult for members to pick up. So if you can just slow down a little bit, that'd be great. No, that's fine. Otherwise, but if members miss what you're saying, it would be a shame.
Verbatim, 2 point, the Commissioner recognizes that it refers local authorities to the Surveillance Camera Code of Practice, the Protection of Freedom Act 2012, PFA S.33.5, sets out that they must pay due regard to the code. 3 point, that said blanket licensing may be disproportionate and should only be used where there is a strong justification as set out in paragraph 1.15 of the code, background of the code. Verbatim, an updated code was laid before Parliament on 16 November 2021 and came into effect on 12 January 2022. This code of practice is issued by the Secretary of State under the section 29 to 31 of the PFA 2012. Scope of the surveillance camera activity which this code applies to. 7 point, verbatim, the code applies to the use of surveillance camera system as defined by section 29(6) of PFA 2012 that operates in public places in England and Wales, regardless of where there is any live viewing or recording of images or information associated to it. Effect of the code. By the virtue of section 33(1) of PFA 2012, a relevant authority is under a duty to have regard to this code. As relevant authorities under PFA, local authorities must be made aware that if they do not pay due regard to the code, this is admissible as evidence in court. The Crown Prosecution Service revised their disclosure manual in December 2018 to reflect this. Code itself, verbatim, 1. Use of surveillance camera system must always be for a specified purpose, which is in pursuit of a legitimate aim and necessary to meet an identified pressing need, unquote. As a democratic council, you did not demonstrate that need, that legitimate identified need, because there is no actual need for such harsh policy in Cambridge. And as a matter of fact, Chair of Cambridge City Council Licensing Committee confirms on your website. On 27 October 2022, on your website, Councillor Russ McPherson, Chair of the Cambridge City Council Licensing Committee, said, verbatim, fortunately, incidents in Cambridge taxis and private hire vehicles are rare, unquote. This quote from Cambridge City Council website is also as admissible as evidence in court. Verbatim, quote number 2, 2.2, deploying surveillance camera system in public places where there is particularly high expectation of privacy should only be done to address a particularly serious problem that cannot be addressed by less intrusive means, unquote. Point to be noted is that taxis are one of the places where there is particularly high expectation of privacy. Code number 2, carry on, verbatim, such deployment should be subject to regular review, at least annually, to ensure it remains necessary, unquote. Second point to be noted is, while the Cambridge City Council adopted the policy of verbatim, at this week's committee meeting, councillors agreed to review the CCTV program every 5 years, with the first review to take place in 2029, unquote. This code of practice required you to conduct a review once a year, but you have chosen to do so every 5 years, and in 2029, it will be actually 6 years. This evidence is also admissible as evidence in court. Cambridge City Council statement, policy, aim, and objective regarding taxi CCTV is purely ambitious based on 2 individuals. An ambition is not legitimate, serious, identified, pressing need, which the code of practice requires you to. 99% of the taxi licensing committee members and decision-making officials are of a white ethnicity. Point to be noted, they are deciding the fate of 90% of the people from Asian, Black, and other minority background. They are telling them what to do without understanding religion, their religion and way of life. In Cambridge City Council, adopting this policy based on prejudices and preconceived ideas. Is this policy rooted in racial discrimination and intended to stigmatize people from Asia, Black, and minority background? Respectable members, as a union, we believe in dialogue and reasoning. We would like to work with the respectable committee members to settle this matter and to avoid further deliberation, petition, and strikes that could cause chaos in the city. If you are willing to, we can provide you with the solution. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Did the officer wish to respond to that?
All I'd like to confirm to members is that we have followed due process. We have followed the statutory guidance around pressing need. A report came in October where we had the police evidence for both City and South around the crime rates within the taxi trade. And we are following the statutory guidance. We've also got confirmation from our information governance team, our legal team and our procurement team that all legal processes have been followed.
And if we could have the next speaker, please, that would be good. Again, once again, exactly the same. It's just introduce yourself. You've got 3 minutes and 2 minutes, or 5 minutes in total, whichever is your choice.
Thank you. My name's Eddie Holland. I'm the Vice Chair of Cambridge City Licensed Taxis. And obviously I've been in the trade for over 30 years now. As it's already been said that back in 2017, CCT was originally proposed by, I think, 1 or 2 individuals from the taxi trade who were just drivers. They didn't own their vehicles or anything like that. And today, they're not even in the trade. The CCTV, which has been proposed, I've looked into from several manufacturers, and it's all Chinese made. Now, there was something that came out, the government put down a diktat to their departments. They can't use CCTV that's got anything to do with China because of they think that the information is going to be collected and used against the common good of England, or the UK, I should say. Now, I've been in the trade a long time, and I was surprised to see that it was 2 people from the trade who proposed it, because today I haven't met anybody who wants it to be implemented on them at their cost. And I think one of the big stumbling blocks of this is that the council is saying, you've got to have it, but you've got to pay for it. I'll probably labour this point again and again. We've come out of 2 years of next to no work. When you run a business, you put by money, as you trade, you put by money to renew your vehicle. Well, for 2 years we had no money, so I'm 2 years behind, as most drivers are, of having any money to put to a new vehicle, let alone £600, which is what I'm being told it's going to cost for a single camera to meet the criteria in a saloon, and up to £1,500 for a lot of the multi-seat vehicles. Now, we've got drivers who, as somebody's already said, who actually rely on food banks to feed their families. I mean, that's not good. So that initial cost is really out of the question for most of us. You've gone down the route of the CCT, can invalidate electric vehicles warranties, again, but I think the drivers should be given a choice. I understand from the council's point of view, if they get complaints coming in from against drivers, okay, they can verify that and know who's right and who's wrong in them questions. But surely we could have a system whereby if the council continually got, say, more than 3 complaints against any driver in 1 year, then they could be brought in and say, well, look, we think you need to have CCTV. It'll be a deterrent. And I think that's really, I can't see what the council's going to get out of making CCTV mandatory in the taxis, only other than to prosecute drivers or persecute drivers or prove their innocence. So surely a point system would be a lot better way to go about it. So I would say we really need to definitely delay this implementation by at least a year, because if it is implemented, I've spoken to 3 providers now who they can do 2 saloon cars a day if they're straightforward. If they're Teslas or electric vehicles, they're going to want them for the day. The multi-seat vehicles, they're going to need them for at least a day, day and a half to put in the systems, and they're the ones that are going to be like £1,500. So I would say to the council, please think again. We don't want it, we can't afford it, and we don't really want to go down a legal route. We just want to come to some sort of common agreement whereby we can all get on with our lives and our businesses. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Kept nicely within time there, thank you. Next, would you like to respond? Next speaker, then please, thank you.
Morning, everybody. Joby Thomas, Hackney driver. I've been doing the trade for 12 years. This is my first time here, so please be kind. Thank you. Sure, thank you, sir. Privacy is the main concern here. Now, this is my understanding. When people discuss work while traveling to airport or anywhere, or personal or any other matter with fellow passengers, or on their phone, wouldn't want their conversations to be recorded. Weekend revelers who are dressed for night out appropriately, their will and wish, freedom, they wouldn't be so excited about being recorded in a confined space, regardless of the fact that driver has no access to the footage. Even if we tell them, they're not going to be quite pleased about having CCTV cameras facing them 2 feet away from them. 12 years of me driving the taxi, only on 2 occasions, I have driven families where a young mother was carrying a child she had to nurse, both occasions traveling from airport to Cambridge. Extremely rare occasion, but I don't think they'll be excited about it. Now, cost concerns. Consumer Price Index, including owners, occupiers, housing costs, CPIH, rose by 8.8% in the months to January 2023. My landlord, Metropolitan Housing Trust, increased my rent by 7%. I have that paper if you would like to see. This is on top of the increase of the cost of electricity, gas, water, council tax, phone, internet, and to top it all, cost of fuel. Cost of equipment and installation is unaffordable for most proprietors who are yet to recover from the loss of income of 2 years of COVID. I'm sure we all know that. I have a few questions. Scientific study and its findings was used by the council that says crime rate has reduced in other council areas as a result of CCTV in taxis. Where can that data be found, and is it available for the public to view online? Is there a pressing need for the local licensing authority to impose installation of CCTV in taxis? Was the public consulted in this matter? I believe public was. Now, sorry, it's my sheet. Not in the taxi, but I asked 3 members of public their opinion. How do you feel if there are CCTV cameras, inward-facing CCTV cameras in the taxi, and it will record continuously? They said, we are okay with it. There are cameras everywhere. I gave them 3 scenarios, the 3 scenarios that I read. Someone talking business while traveling, weekend revelers, dressed for the night out, and a nursing mother. When you give them these 3 simple examples, people change their opinion, and that happens less than a minute. An informed public will have a different opinion, and we have the example of Brexit. When people are not given the right question, because if, sorry, 2 minutes 30. When the question is framed in such a way that I want the result that I want, I can get the answer I want. And we know it is possible. Now, about the data. Definitely a third party is going to hold the data. Now, will the council require that contractor to do enhanced DBS on the employees who will access to such data? Now, if there's a breach of data, has the council made policy to deal with such a breach? Someone steals data from the storage. Now, if that happens, has council allocated funds to deal with any financial compensation requirements or any legal requirements? How has the council made policy to deal with such a scenario where concerned parties have to be provided assistance? Is there a policy in place for such scenarios? And if yes, have the council trained council employees in such policies? Some of the questions have already been answered, so I yield my time.
Okay, thank you very much for that. The officer wish to respond? Thank you.
Yeah, I've already covered the issue around pressing need, which was addressed in the October report. Just for clarification, conversations audio will not be recorded unless a button is hit on either party, from either the passenger or the driver. So just a clarification, there will be no audio recordings throughout the whole journey unless the driver or the passenger chooses to push the button, so it can be recorded. And then the third matter around data, the only data controllers is the City Council, and it will be named officers within the City Council, and the recordings will only be requested at the need of any incident that may have happened. Thank you.
Okay, gentlemen, we have space enough for one more speaker, so if you just like to decide between you who that's going to be. No, we've got space for one more speaker. Is that going to be you? So your time's ticking away, so gentlemen, you need to decide who's going to be the next speaker. You've got time for one more speaker. Okay, so if that speaker would like to take their seat and begin speaking, or you're going to run out of time.
Hi, my name is Kamil Wina. I'm a Hackney carriage driver. And basically what I would just want to say is I'm a driver. I'm not that technical as my friends, okay? So I'm happy to support them. I'm happy to support with the other drivers to get this case to the court, because I think those points are pretty valuable to me. To be honest with you, I can't afford it. You know, the situation looks like it looks. The banking crisis is right on the edge, okay? How would you like me, where I can get a loan to fulfill this CCTV? Yet alone the cars going up 20%, which I need to buy. The difference between implementing the CCTV to saloon car and wheelchair accessible car is massive. You got plenty complaints of the wheelchair accessible users, wheelchair accessible taxis customers, okay? Now you got the trade who's saying no. That is, you need to plan something, because it looks like the Hackney carriage trade is falling apart. I would like to thank Yvonne, Naomi and Richard for coming to the taxi forums, because they're very informative. And if you have a look on this, the trade got really interested more than ever. I'm in the trade 12 years. You got loads of people standing outside, okay, protesting, sticking together. You got two organizations in the Cambridge City, okay, plus the South Camps are joining as well. Majority of the taxis in the city is from the South Camps, okay? They're gathering with us. There are colleagues here who represent them to come and listen to this, okay? You got the whole trade behind you, okay? Come and work with us. So I don't think that it's a good idea as well to move the taxi forums to the online system, because even if you will go and you will get hundreds of taxi drivers suddenly join one meeting on the Zoom, I don't think it will work well. I think you got the representation of the two massive organizations in here, okay? You got Carl Stamper, which is really detailed in the details, and really what I think, give us a little bit of time, help us to make this trade better for everyone, for the public, for us, for you, okay? You got the CTG, which they're coming with the congestion charge and sustainable travel zone, right? And you got the trade, who is one of the biggest transportation sectors in the city. Right here, who is willing to work with you on a tighter basis, okay? And so that's that. What I'm supporting, what I will be supporting with my finance them into the court case, I will do that because I believe that you've been proven lately that your legal advice is not as good as you think it is. So now I ask you a question. If that was already proven, you know, where are the points you are missing? You know, it is as simple as that. You can't just listen to one person. You need to listen to the trade, how you can have a good view. And you are our, leaderboards, right? You are in charging, especially Hackney carriages, okay? The private hire sector got much more freedom, but you need to manage your resources, especially wheelchair accessible vehicles, which are disappearing all the time off the streets. You need to manage your resources right and think and see how the situation look like on the ground. Because with the station rank, which is public, okay? Station road rank, which is public, that's going away, okay? So you got only station square rank, which is private rank. Now all of the taxis can go there, and majority of your wheelchair accessible fleet cannot go there. You got only a handful of them on there, okay? So think, if, as your report shows, there is downside on the jobs coming up from the city ranks, which you got 2, 3, they falling down. Okay, station is going up, maybe, but the city is going down, the uptake of the customers. How do you want them, those wheelchair vehicles, which they extra expensive, they need to have more CCTVs in them than the average car. How do you want to upkeep them? Do you think that the people will just go to this job to earn below minimum wage per hour, as some of them do? Some of the drivers go to the food banks. Come on, people. Work with the trade. Thank you.
Thank you very much, gentlemen, for your contributions. We've got no more time for any speakers. That's a 30.
Registered for different subjects.
Sorry?
My name is Dan.
Sorry?
I am registered for talk about different subjects for clean air. My name is registration here.
We've run out of time now. That's what I said. This item lasts for 30 minutes. It's now been 32 minutes. The public question time has now run out, I'm afraid. So we've run out of time on that.
But can you have
So,
5 minutes?
Councillor
Councillor
Tosala,
to listen the
it's
clean air
yours.
matter.
The public question time has now run out, 30 minutes. I made that really clear at the start.
But I am registered. My
I
name
made
is
that
there, but
really
I am not-
clear at the start. 30 minutes. It's now been 33 minutes. I made that crystal clear at the start. Yeah. But that's it. 30 minutes question time. It was up to you how you filled it. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, I have some concerns about this policy. I split that into a few parts. One is cost element, the second is GDPR, and finally, the cultural impact on service users. Let me begin by the cost. The report, it is mentioned that it will be 500 pounds, no, 300 to 500 pounds. I believe that is for a small car. If in the case of a van, my understanding is that it will cost them somewhere about 1,500 pounds. This is what I have received from the the taxi drivers. Now, you know the situation here. We are recovering from COVID. We can see every day in the news, nurses are on strike, doctors are on strike, lawyers are on strike, street teachers are on strike. Why? Because they have difficulties in living with whatever they earn. Now, we have a situation here. We are simply recovering from the COVID. These people are having a significant impact on the living. And at this point in time, the council is trying to implement a policy which would require them to invest another 500 to 1,500 pounds. Should we not help them at this point, instead of making their life extremely difficult for them? They are not this is not a highly earned job. They're just simply making their living. And considering that, I would ask the council to review the decision and move to the second part, which is the GDPR. I have some concern and some serious concerns, because I'll give you my own example. If I were to hire a taxi from Cambridge to Heathrow Airport with my family, would I? Got it. with my kids, family, sitting in this chamber like that? Certainly I don't. I asked my wife, would she be happy with that? She said, no way. I asked my 9-year-old son. He said, no way. And one point. And secondly, if they were to take a passenger and then they ask the passenger, are you happy for us to record this? And if they say no, then would they have to turn the job down? And how many of the local passengers would be happy to record them when they are inside of the taxi? And secondly, would a passenger be happy to record her, or when the moment the taxi driver say we are going to record you, if they just go away, maybe in the middle of the night, maybe in a very difficult climate, pouring rain, they would be forced into the taxi despite the fact that they do not want to be recorded. The taxi driver rightly mentioned, do we have any policy in place if we were to breach the records? And if there are, what is it? And rightly pointed out by them, if we breach, what would be the legal implications? Do we have budgeted an amount for this in the event of a potential legal challenge? Now, did we have a specific consultation with service users, i.e. elderly residents who live in the care homes and elderly people? And did we have a proper consultation with the taxi drivers? And plus, Yvonne just mentioned you had consultation with the police. Let me ask you, did we have a specific consultation with the police where we required an in-house camera, an inward camera in the taxi? And what was their response? Did the local constabulary support this, the implementation of an inward camera? This is a serious concern. I'm going to read a message which I have received from one of the taxi driver and his wife. My wife is a modest practicing Muslim lady who is recently uncomfortable with the inward looking camera. When CCTV is implemented, she will no longer assist me. She will mean that, okay, I'll just read the first paragraph. My wife and I transport special needs children, and she is my personal assistant. Government to transport special needs children are that one must be DBS checked to obtain a personal assistant badge. Modest practicing Muslim lady who is really uncomfortable with inward looking camera. When CCTV is implemented, she will no longer assist me. I lose my school contract. The taxi trade has not recovered from COVID-19, and the cost of living is consistently rising. I am not in a position to buy another car for private use. I occasionally turn to food bank to provide food for my family. How can I afford 700 to 800 pounds for the CCTV? It goes on. I stop there. And secondly, most of them having a single car. Most of them having a single car, they use this other family car. If they are going out with their family, every moment of their time in the car will be recorded. And how this would be fair to that particular driver or those drivers who only work with a single car. Would that be fair? Would it be for us, the council, to implement such a policy which is not going to help them at all? Now, in conclusion, looking at the concrete condition, the living difficulties and the living wages is going up, everywhere strike action. Now, is it the right time to implement this, which would require them to spend somewhere around 500 to 1,500 pounds? On that basis, my request to the council is this: at least defer it for 2 years, and then we have proper consultation. Consultation with service users, consultation with local residents, and consultation with taxi drivers. Then we proceed with this. For the time being, it should be at least postponed for 2 years. That's my representation on behalf of the taxi drivers. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that. I will say, I'll just bounce back a little bit. I know it's frustrating, you can't, gentlemen on the end here, you can't get your point in. I do understand that. But I did explain quite clearly at the start that the public question time will be 30 minutes. How your colleagues fill that 30 minutes is entirely up to you. So I'm sorry about that, and I do get your frustration, but that's the way it is, I'm afraid. So, okay, so I thought, so I'm trying to explain to you why we did that. So, Councillor Bajan, all yours.
Thank you, Chair. I must say that nearly everything that's been said so far that I agree with, but I am not here to talk about whether the CCTV cameras or the CCTV cameras should be in taxis. Other people have spoken about that. I recognise that this committee has made a decision. It's up to this committee whether it wants to revoke that decision, but I'm not arguing in that area. I met with around 15 taxi drivers yesterday, and there's been, in my opinion, a number of misunderstandings here. People in the taxi trade do not appear to understand exactly what's happened. Now, I'm not making any accusations about that. I know the council have been through the correct procedure. I know that they followed the rules. I know that they came to a decision at a meeting that was correctly called. But the taxi drivers appear not to completely understand that. So I've come here to talk about some of those misunderstandings and to try and level up that playing field. I know that the drivers feel very passionate about it. They've just come out of COVID. They're an essential service in this city. They're struggling, many of them, to actually succeed, to keep going. Some of them, I'm told, are using food banks. I'm going to list some of the questions that I was asked yesterday, some of the questions that I couldn't answer. Drivers are asking Chinese security cameras. Now, our government is talking against using Chinese security cameras. So that's a concern. It's a thought. It's a thought that the committee has to consider. Who has access to this data? Who can achieve it? Now, I know Yvonne has answered that question, but it's still not clear to the drivers. It's not clear to my colleague on my right, who says people are being recorded when they don't want to be. So I think that that needs to be really answered in great depth. I understand that the Tesla car will interfere with the CCTV. Now, I know it's not the council's responsibility to provide a provider, but if this is a problem, then we have a good reason to look at this. We need to understand. Nissan are saying, if you put a camera into one of our new vehicles, then the warranty for it. That's a real difficulty that we should be considering. The police, I understand, will not act on the evidence on these cameras. There's been a number of drivers that have had cameras and have had problems, and they go to the police with the camera and the CCTV, and the police say, it's not our problem, it's a civil matter. Now, I know how reticent the police are to act on these things. Some 5 or 6 years ago, there was an incident in the Market Square late at night, and I got deeply involved in that, assisting the taxi drivers who were suffering a rampage by 4 or 5 drunk people in the Market Square. The police did not act on that. They didn't do anything about it. They didn't charge anybody, although there was camera footage. So it brings the whole thing as to why we have these cameras. The taxi trade doesn't understand. And now I come to the cost. £500 to £1,500 to put a camera in a car. In a van. Some of the people in the taxi trade, in fact a great many of them, are Muslim. As a Muslim, I'm given to understand that you cannot borrow money if you have to pay interest on it. So we are talking about having to potentially find £1,500 up front to pay in cash. So I'm asking the committee to think about what's been said in here. This is not a case of a group of people rebelling against something that we as a council have decided. This is a case of a group of people who don't understand. They don't understand why this is being done to them. They don't understand how they're going to meet the cost. So I'm asking to buy some time, to have some more discussions, for the committee to think about its proposal. And I'm requesting that they suspend it for the time being until there have been further discussions with the taxi trade. These are important people in our society. Thank you.
Just briefly, as I explained, only the few officers in the council have access to the data. Yeah, the data is not accessed by anyone else. Just for clarification, if the vehicle is being used for personal use, then the cameras can be switched off, which I clarified at the last committee meeting. And thirdly, just as a reminder, you are a public service, you are a public transport, and like any other public transport, there is CCTV in buses, on the underground and on trains. So there is CCTV recorded in all types of public transport that we all get on every day. Thank you.
Okay, thank you everyone for your contributions. That will now take us to item 7, because we're going to just chop that around a little bit so the gentleman won't hang around too long. So CCTV in Hackney Carriage private vehicles. Will the Environmental Health Manager please introduce this item?
Thank you, Chair. So we've spoken a lot today about the CCTV in the vehicles. Just to reiterate, back in October 2022, the Licensing Committee did approve the implementation of CCTV in a licensed vehicle in a phased and managed approach. Any grant of a new licence or renewal of an existing licensed vehicle from the 1st of April 2023 must be fitted with CCTV. This would then allow all licensed vehicles to be installed with CCTV by 31st of March 2024. Following a number of discussions with the trade and with members, we realised that the specification, although it was in the committee report in October 22, it wasn't formally issued until a couple of weeks ago. We also were requiring to ensure that we had our data protection impacts assessment done, and we had to work with our information governance colleagues to ensure that we had all our DPIAs in place and privacy statements in place, which again led to the delay in the specification. Therefore, listening to what the trade have said, speaking to some of the installers that we have spoken to, we felt that we would push the implementation date back to the 1st of September 2023 to give the trade more time to speak to the installers, find out other installers that could do this. So I'm recommending today two members to approve the implementation of CCTV in licensed vehicles in a phased and manageable approach to be postponed to the 1st of September 2023. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, recommendations are on page 41, 21, and 2.1, 2.2, and just a one-liner on page 42. Members, over to you. Councillor Scott.
I just wanted to say, in terms of the declarations of interest, that Nazir Aden, who is an official in one of the organisations, spoke with both Councillor Divkovic and myself earlier, and then in the corridor, but nothing was said that could in any way impinge on the decision-making here. I just want to clarify that, so that there could be no mistake. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that. Please, Eva.
So this is just a question for Yvonne. I'm just asking whether an equality impact assessment was done for the specification and for the policy itself, because obviously a lot of points were raised during the public questions about going to food banks and the potential impact that it would have on drivers in our city. So I just want you to clarify whether that has been done or not.
Yeah, an EQIA was done in October 2022, and that went to committee, and it was signed off by our equalities officer.
Are there any other comments? Yeah, David.
Yeah, thank you. I just want to check a fact in this forum here from Yvonne that that when these cameras are recording data, that data goes into a hard drive in the cab, nowhere else. There are no signals being transmitted by the system whatsoever under any circumstances. And this business of cameras made in China, which does sound very strange to me and sounds to me a bit like a conspiracy theory rather than actual reality. It seems to me it's irrelevant. Am I right in thinking that's absolutely, completely irrelevant? Thank you, Chair.
Yeah, the recording goes into a hard drive that sits in the cab, and only if there's an incident that's been reported, we can then pull out that information into the council's computer system, which is designated for specifically this. And there's no other signal. That information does not go anywhere else other than through to the city council officers, who are going to be designated officers, no different to any other form of CCTV in the city or any other public transport.
Councillor Bird.
Thank you, Chair. And thank you to all the speakers this morning. I do understand where you're coming from. This has gone on and on and on since 2017, as you all understand. I understand every person who's got an occupation, the bus drivers, cleaners, whoever, shop workers, are all having to go to food banks. So you're not the only ones. It is a hardship for everybody. But we have given you grace. We've explained the whole system to you over every committee, I think, since 2017 it's come up, with some drivers coming every time. And we try to explain everything to the drivers so they understand everything. And we've tried everything we possibly can. That's why we're giving them a grace again until the 1st of September. And I think if you guys all grouped together, got an organiser, a company that does these CCTVs, and all clubbed together, it'd probably be cheaper for you than doing it one by one. And also having the camera is a safety for you and also the safety for the traveller. Plus, can I say that we have had subcommittees in the years with people had problems in taxis because of a certain taxi driver, or a traveller has been drunk or caused abuse to the taxi driver. So and that would have helped us with our decision at the subcommittee, rather than perhaps revoke a driver's licence or suspend it, if we'd have had that data. That data will not be touched unless a case comes up. So I think that explains everything. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you for that. I've got Councillor Scott, Pagecroft and Councillor Robertson. Have I missed anybody? Okay.
I'll just be very brief. A member of the taxi trade emailed all of us with a list of concerns, and I confirmed to that taxi driver that the matters would be raised at this meeting this morning, and all the matters have been raised very articulately, and Yvonne has addressed them all. So I just want to confirm that in the minute.
Okay, thank you for that. So in this order then, Councillor Pagecroft, Councillor Robertson, Councillor Gilderdale and Councillor Bennett. Councillor Pagecroft, it's yours.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to, actually, Councillor Bird said it all. Councillor Bird and I have sat on some committees where the treatment of the passenger has been quite harrowing, and if we'd had CCTV, it would have made life a lot easier to come to a decision. This CCTV is for protection for the passengers, protection for the drivers. We do need this, and as Yvonne said, it's all over. It's on buses, it's on trains, on everything. I cannot understand what the problem is. People need to be protected. It isn't going to be recording while you're out with your family. It's going to be switched off. You can switch it off. It's quite easy. It's going to be kept on a hard drive. We just need to get this implemented as quickly as we can for the safety of some of our passengers, because I have sat on some really bad committees where we've had to decide the treatment of the passenger was absolutely terrible. So I want to support this.
Councillor Robertson.
Thank you. I try and make sure I go to the taxi forums as much as I can. I didn't get to the last one because I had a rather serious antisocial behaviour issue to deal with at that time, so I couldn't come to the forum. I usually do. The one before last was the one that talked about the cost of CCTV in particular. Well, CCTV as an issue, but the cost of it was the main thrust of the discussion. And it was quite interesting that part of the discussion was about the pure cost of installing the equipment, but there was also discussion about the cost of other aspects to do with the vehicle, which is the tinting of the windows. It's also on the agenda this morning. If you have to buy a new vehicle, you will often find that the tinting of the windows is too dark to meet the conditions of the license that we require. If the tinting is more than 30%, it's not acceptable in certain windows. The cost of taking those windows out and replacing it with lighter tint is not something that will occur if you have CCTV. It's no longer a problem. It could be any tint in the back if you've got CCTV, whereas if you've got to replace it, then there's an extra cost. So that was an interesting discussion which hadn't come to my mind, to my knowledge before, but I think it's relevant to our discussion this morning. Nobody's mentioned it, but it is cheaper it may end up being cheaper to put in CCTV than to replace the windows. The other point I would make is, what's been made, is to do with when should the costs be incurred by the taxi drivers. Now, the cost of installing it has been varied. The prices, it seems to be varied rather wildly. But it would have been possible, perhaps, to get a collection of the taxi drivers together to go do a deal with an installation company. That's something that could be arranged. It still could be arranged, because the proposal you've seen on the report is to defer the implementation of the decision for another few months. It's not going to happen on the 1st of April. That's the proposal anyway. So there is time to organise something along those lines. The other point, of course, is that the cost of any of this work is tax deductible. It's not, unless somebody's very low paid and owns a vehicle, then that seems it's a tax deductible item, and therefore there's a further reduction in cost. So I understand all the issues, but it's been delayed several times, primarily because of COVID, yes, very good reason. But in October last year, it was decided to implement the policy again, to confirm it, and to introduce it from this April. We're now deferring it a little longer, but I do think now you've got to recognise it's going to come in. It's an issue that needs to be recognised to save up for it if necessary.
Councillor Gilderdale.
Oh, sorry. I just had a quick question about what has been mentioned in terms of the feasibility of putting CCTV in certain vehicles, and the suggestion that certain electric vehicles will have their warranty or will lose the warranty if the CCTV is put in, and if there's anything that can be done, or if there's alternatives that can be used, or I don't know, it just seems to be a bit of a grey area that we're trying to encourage people to move to electric vehicles, but then if that causes issues with us also needing there to be CCTV in the EVs, then yeah, how can we navigate that? Thanks.
Actually, that was going to be my question at the end as well. No, I was quite interested in that as well, so I was going to ask that later, so I don't need to now.
We weren't aware that there was an issue around this, so we will be going back and looking at it and trying to find a solution to it.
It's news to me as well. I've got Councillor Bennett and then Councillor Ivkovic. So, Councillor Bennett, it's yours.
Thank you, Chair. And before I ask the question I was going to ask, I'd just like to comment very briefly to confirm what Councillor Bygent said about Sharia law finance. There are Sharia law finance products available for large loans such as mortgages, but for small amounts like 1,500 personal loans, it's just too clunky to do. So he is correct that there is limited availability and that this is actually a genuine barrier. I'd also like to confirm from my personal experience that there are a large number of drivers who have actually ended up at our food bank here in Abbey and who've also missed out on COVID business support during the pandemic for various reasons. I wasn't a counsellor when the pandemic started, but I was part of the COVID mutual aid callback facility, and my taxi driver cases were the hardest ones to deal with and to get any sort of finance. The thing I came to say though is that it always takes longer than we think to organise these things. Yes, there could be some sort of joint endeavour. It would take 6 months just to do all the legals and organisation for that before you could even start installation. If people don't have the money, they need to save up. If I was here and not prevented from attending by health reasons, I would be voting for deferral, but I'd also like to recommend that rather than just doing 6 months and possibly being forced to come back and do another 6 months, that we consider a longer deferral period, and that gives the trade time to plan. And I would support the 2-year extension suggested by other councillors. Thank you.
Councillor Dickovich.
Thank you, Chair. So I spoke to one of the Hackney carriage drivers some time back about wheelchair accessible private hire vehicles and Hackney carriage vehicles. And we were just talking about barriers to wheelchair accessible vehicles. And I just want to talk about one of the implications, which is on page 44, where it's expected that larger 8-seater vehicles may require up to 4 cameras and 2 to 3 audio buttons to meet the needs of both driver and passenger and capture the whole vehicle. So my question today is, should the committee vote in favour of the recommendation, would it be possible to consider in that interim adjusting the specifications so where they have to have 4 cameras, some of the specifications can be more lenient towards wheelchair accessible vehicles, like for example 1.16, where the system must be capable of recording audio time synchronized to recorded images. We could have, say, 2 of the cameras that wouldn't necessarily need that specification because 2 of the others have that. So that's just one example, obviously, but just use the interim time to consider whether there can be more lenient specifications for those kinds of drivers. Thank you.
Any more comments from members? Councillor Gildo, please.
It's been mentioned a few times that we delay the get further. I'd be interested to hear what our options are in terms of delaying the implementation date beyond the 1st of September, whether that is possible, what implication that would have on the council, whether that's something that we can make a decision on today. I personally don't know if there's enough clarity about what, you know, especially with electric vehicles, and there have been a lot of questions raised. I don't know if, yeah, if there's a possibility to further delay, or whether we think that the 1st of September is the right date, and how the 1st of September was agreed on, because obviously it was initially supposed to be the 1st of April.
You're very good at preempting my questions, aren't you? I was going to ask what are the implications of that, because yeah, I'd like to know that as well. Councillor Davey.
Yeah, again, similar to, I suppose, one for Yvonne. Like Councillor Gilderdale, it's the electric vehicle thing that's raised my concerns, and it's therefore the speakers today have been very clear about and of their desire to work with us. So the issue for me, the question is, when will we find out about the electric vehicles and their compatibility with CCTV, and does that by itself necessitate a delay? Thank you.
I know for a fact we asked the question of the installers around CCTV and electric vehicles, and we were reassured in the specification that it was compatible with electric vehicles. We did specifically ask that question. The question that's been raised today is about the Tesla, and I didn't appreciate that there was going to be an issue on a specific vehicle rather than general EV vehicles. But that question was asked because we were concerned that CCTV may drain the battery, but we've been reassured by the installers that is not the case. So I can go back to specifically look at the Tesla, but generally speaking, EVs shouldn't be a problem.
Councillor Scott.
I'm just wondering about the liability of the council, that this matter has been on board before this committee from 2017, is my understanding. I wasn't on this council at that time. But I'm just wondering, say for example that something did happen in a taxi to a taxi driver or to a passenger, but let's look at taxi drivers, and the taxi driver was attacked, and if there'd been CCTV in the taxi, that attack might not have happened, or at least arguably from a legal point of view one could have said that. So what position then would the City Council be from a potential legal action by the taxi driver or by a passenger, if it was a passenger, before the court, in the knowledge that this had been before the council and this committee for more than 4 years, and we had not acted on ensuring the safety of taxi drivers and passengers by the requirement that CCTV cameras be put into the taxis? Thank you.
Either you wish to respond to that, Paul, perhaps?
I don't have any comments on that. All I would say is that, as we've all said, this matter has been going on now for a number of years. It's down to this committee to make that decision as to whether they still want to implement CCTV, the implementation date of CCTV. My recommendation, as we've already made a decision back in October, that the decision of the 1st of April was determined then, listening to the trade and speaking with the chair of licensing, we took the decision to postpone it until the 1st of September. At some point, we're still waiting the outcome of the government consultation on safety standards in taxis, and it may be that CCTV becomes a mandatory requirement by law. So we don't know that yet. So the decision is really down to this committee to make that decision. My recommendation is the 1st of September.
In respect of any litigation, any legal claim against the City Council, the position is that the report has gone through the process many, many times. It has been sanctioned and approved by this committee if it goes through. Any claim by whichever party will be looked at and strenuously defended by the City Council Legal Department.
Chair, if I may, I just wanted some clarity, if I may. I asked for you, can I? Yeah. Chair, the question was, I heard in this chamber 3 or 4 times about the government is not recommending a Chinese camera, and we are recommending a Chinese camera. Can we have some sort of a clarity on this? I heard this at least 3 or 4 people in the chamber, but I never heard a response to that. Thank you.
All I would say is we're using reputable installers. CCTV is across the whole city. It's in, as I've already said, it's in buses, it's in trains. I don't know the makes of the CCTV. We are using reputable installers. Now, if Chinese CCTV is not accepted by this central government, then I assume that a lot of the CCTV and all the other public transport is of the same origin. I can't comment any further on that fact.
Councillor Levin, I'm sorry, you dropped off my radar for a second. My apologies.
Thank you, Chair. Well, there are 2 things, actually. In the wrong order. Chinese cameras. I'd actually be quite interested in visiting one of these companies at some point with my smattering of engineering knowledge and check up. It seems to me that there's a difference between camera systems, which are connected to the outside world, which is, I think, what the government's getting at, and a camera with its own self-contained electronics, which probably has software not written in China, I don't know, that doesn't transmit data outside, will not be capable of being snooped on. That's my own personal view with my tiny smattering of engineering knowledge. The other thing I was going to say, which is partially answered, but just to reiterate it, I think, for all of us to hear again from Yvonne, there's only a small percentage, I think 15 out of 278 authorities, which so far are going for the implementation of CCTV. I'd be interested to know whether that number is increasing, decreasing, or some giving it up. And I was going to ask, but I think you already answered it, but if you could again, is there a likelihood of government legislation forcing the issue anyway? Thank you.
My understanding is it's been written into the statutory guidance for taxis, and that's where it talks about proportionality and pressing need. We don't know what's going to come out of central government at this moment in time, but it's certainly been consulted on.
Councillor Robertson.
I think this whole matter, there are issues that have just been raised about intrusion by the Chinese and the intrusion by other agencies. I do think this matter really comes down to cost. I do think it's been recognised since over 5.5 years now since the decision was made. There were reasons for deferring it, very good decisions. I don't think that can go on forever. I do think you've got time to, taxi drivers have got time to organise themselves and get some good deals on installation. The It's in your own interests as well as the public's interests, and I do think we should just get on with it. Thank you.
Let's go.
Just wanted to clarify, there was a bit of toing and throwing between us here, but I want to make clear that we weren't discussing the issue. We were discussing the issue of moving to the vote or having a brief adjournment, that was all. It was nothing substantive.
I never thought it would be.
To make sure it's on record.
No,
Thank
that's
you.
fine, thank you.
But perhaps I will move that we move to the vote, that we have had sufficient debate and that we should be moving to the vote. So I'm moving that.
I'm so pleased you are, because that's just what I was going to do. That's my notes here. Whilst we've heard a lot about the CCTV today, and you gentlemen who've been to this... Not... I didn't hear that anyway, I'm sorry, but those of you who've been to this committee before, especially in here when we've been spread out, will know that committee members, myself included, are on your side, and I've given you a lot of time to speak, and I've been able to do that, and I'm happy to do that. We want to hear from you, and it's really important to us. And you do form an extraordinarily important part of the city. I don't think anybody here is disputing that in any way whatsoever, nor downgrading the service that you give to people or the importance of that service on an individual basis. That's absolutely sure. But as you've heard from members, there are some questions that have been raised today from your statements. It was worth coming. We've learned some new things from you, and we understand how important this is and how passionately that you feel. I know that that none of us here would wish the message to go across that we don't care about you. That is not true. We absolutely do. And you're always welcome here and always welcome to speak, and I will always allow you to do that. And if we can, and again, you gentlemen have seen me a couple of times, know that to be true. I'm a reasonable chap. I'm just a working fella, exactly the same as you. And I have to buy an awful lot of kit for what I do when I'm not sitting here. And I have to buy that myself. And lots of independent people have to do that. So I do understand what it's like. I don't have a big company behind me anymore paying for my things either. So, you know, I'm very sympathetic. So, but what I'm going to do now, gentlemen, I am going to move to the vote now, members, but I just needed to reiterate to the good people that we do feel for them, we do understand them, we get their perspective, and we do support them, and they are valued. Members, I'll take you to the recommendations now on page 41 at 2.1, 2.2, and just, I think I said before, just one line on the following page. So all those in favour of those recommendations, please show.
Seven in favour, Chair.
And those against?
2 against, Chair.
Okay, then the recommendation is carried. Thank you very much. That takes us to we're back to item 5, I believe, if my notes are, I'm following my notes correctly. So, yeah, we're on item 5 now. Would the Environment and Health Manager please introduce this item?
Thank you, Chair. So this is around, as Councillor Robertson had alluded to, about window tints in the rear passengers of vehicles. As we know, the vehicle standards require a certain level of visibility within the vehicle, the rear passenger vehicles of tints. We've gone to a 30%, 70% light transfer. However, as we've already discussed, we feel that a lot of the electric vehicles are coming out with darker tints now, and with the introduction of CCTV, we feel that once the CCTV is installed into a vehicle, then we will remove the tint standard. So this, So the recommendation to members is to reconsider and approve the following changes to the current taxi window tint requirements. And these are all listed at 2.1.1, 2.1.2, 2.1.3, 2.1.4 and 2.1.5. Thank you.
Councillors, is there any debate? No questions on that? Then in that case, oh, sorry, please.
My question is, how will this policy interact with the delay in CCTV, in implementing CCTV cameras? Because obviously, I think when they do vote on it, all vehicles will be required to have CCTV vehicles. Does this mean that some of them will be exempt if they have clear back windows? No.
Do you mean exempt from CCTV? No, they have to have, all vehicles, as already agreed, will have to have CCTV starting on the 1st of September. Obviously, this paper was written before the first report we've done had gone through. So the idea was that as of the 1st of April, this policy would change. However, as drivers are purchasing new vehicles as of the 1st of April, if they want to purchase a vehicle with dark tints in, they can then install CCTV at the same time. So it's where you've got CCTV in, they can have a darker window tint.
Any other questions? No? Okay, in that case then we'll go to the vote on those recommendations. All those in favour?
Unanimous in favour, Chair.
Thank you, Sarah. Okay, that takes us to item 6 on page 27. So I'm juggling with my papers as well. Recommendations are on page 29 at 2.1. Would the officer like to introduce?
Yep. So this is the CCT financial options that I was asked to go and look away. After the October committee, I was asked to see whether there was any financial support that we could give to the drivers for CCTV. I took an update report in January, and this is the final report. Spoken to the Community Safety Partnership, spoken to the police. No public agencies have any funding available for this. We also spoke to some of the installers, and some installers can offer some support, but the drivers would have to shop around to see what support there would be available to the installer, from the installers. So this report is more of a to-note report. So to note that the officers have investigated potential financial options for installation of CCTV. Unfortunately, there's no financial support available from the agencies. However, companies do offer some financial options to support with the payment of CCTV implementation. So this recommendation is just to note rather than a vote.
Great. Oh, Councillor Scott, please.
I just want to say thank you very much to the officers for investigating this. And number two, I wanted to say that on the companies that did say they would be willing to give some consideration to some possible reduction, would it be possible to inform the leaders of the different taxi organisations which companies it was that made that suggestion so that they could follow it up? Because it would be good, I think, if the taxi company and drivers got together, because clearly if they were all together, that would make for some incentive in any event, because we all know that if you have more asking for something, there'll be a reduction. And then if you could notify them of the companies with whom you've been speaking. Thank you.
Unfortunately, we can't do that because of our procurement rules. We're not allowed to have a list of recommended installers. What we've done is we've just shopped around with a list of installers that we're not recommending. Once we start naming names of who can provide what, then we're almost verging into an approved list, which under our procurement rules, and I've just taken advice from legal here, that we probably wouldn't be able to do that, unfortunately.
I understand, sorry, and I shouldn't have even suggested it, but there were members of the taxi fleet here, and so they know that there are some, they can therefore make their own inquiries.
Absolutely,
Thank
yeah.
you.
Okay, thank you very much. So we've noted that report, but before we, I think that concludes the official business here, doesn't it? Yes. But before we do that, I would like to mention that Paul, to my right here, this is his last meeting because Paul is deciding to take up fly fishing or whatever else, or motorcycling like somebody else does. So this will be your last licensing meeting, won't it, Paul?
Chair, yes, that's correct. This is my last meeting. And I think I'm not even at the subcommittee next week, so this really is the last time I'm here. I think I've got 2 or 2.5 weeks before I finally retire. What I would say to members present is that I've been working with licensing in different places since 2000. I've been working here since, I don't know, 2016, something like that. Licensing is the only time I really come into contact with members, and throughout the years I have been, wherever I've worked, impressed with the diligence with the way members approach licensing, both in group committee or in full committee and in the subcommittees. It has, as the trade, and I hate using the phrase trade, as they move to become more professional, that attitude and that desire has been reflected by members and officers wherever I am, and it's very pleasing to see. So thank you all very much for the support you've given me over the last 6-7 years.
Well, you've certainly given us support, and in fact, your advice and leadership on subcommittees without being overly involved has been very much appreciated. Thank you very much. So, are you buying the drinks now? Members, thank you very much. I know it's been difficult decisions to make today. They're definitely not easy.
Chair?
I thank you for taking the time to do that.
We haven't voted for this one.
For what?
For this one?
It's to know.
It's just a note. There's no vote for it.
Oh, right, okay. I've lost the plot.
Yes, David?
Definitely, thank you. I'd definitely like to say, I think I'm the most recent member here. And Paul gave me a bit of advice. He said, there's no such thing as a silly question. And Paul, I will follow your advice completely.
I'm able to break that rule. I ask a lot of silly questions.
I said, I'll be asking plenty of silly questions too, Chair.
Thank you very much, everyone. That concludes the business of the day. Thank you.